The first lie my husband told me wasn't about another woman. It was about a receipt from a coffee shop in downtown Austin. Mark and I had been married for 7 years, and if you had asked me back then, I would have told you our marriage was solid. We owned a nice house in the suburbs, shared a dog named Buster, and had a comfortable routine. Mark worked as a senior project manager at a tech firm, and I was a graphic designer. We were best friends. Or at least, I really thought we were. But looking back now, the distance didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, quiet fade. Mark started coming home late from the office, blaming a massive new software rollout. He was exhausted, or at least that's what he told me. When we sat on the couch in the evenings, he was physically there, but his mind was somewhere miles away. He spent a lot of time staring at his phone, his face illuminated by the blue light, a faint, distant smile on his lips that quickly vanished whenever I asked what he was reading. "Oh, just some work emails," he'd say, locking the screen and setting it face down on the coffee table. Honestly, I didn't think much of it at first. Marriages go through dry spells, right? Stress from the job can drain the life out of anyone. I tried to be supportive. I made his favorite meals, gave him space, and handled more of the household chores so he could unwind. But the emotional wall between us just kept growing taller. He stopped asking about my day. He stopped teasing me. The casual, affectionate touches, a hand on my lower back while I made coffee, a kiss on the forehead before leaving for work, just completely stopped. Then came the rainy Tuesday evening when I was cleaning out the console of his SUV to find the garage door opener. Under a stack of old napkins, I found a crumpled receipt from a French bakery downtown. It was dated for the previous Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. That was the exact time Mark had told me he was stuck at the office in North Austin, dealing with a server crisis. The receipt was for 2 vanilla lattes and a slice of almond cake. Mark drinks his coffee black, and he hates sweets. My chest tightened, a cold knot forming in my stomach. I stood there in the driveway, the rain tapping on the roof of the car, staring at that little piece of paper. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he bought coffee for a client. Maybe he was with a coworker. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things because things had been a little tense between us lately. I should have trusted my gut right then, but I didn't want to be that suspicious, insecure wife. When Mark came home that night, he seemed completely normal. He kissed my cheek, complained about the traffic on I-35, and sat down at the kitchen island. I poured him a glass of water, trying to keep my voice casual, trying to ignore the frantic pounding of my heart. "Hey, how did that Saturday server issue end up turning out?" I asked, wiping down the counter. Mark didn't even blink. He took a sip of his water and looked right at me. "It was a nightmare," he said, shaking his head with a sigh. "I was stuck in that stuffy conference room for 4 hours straight. I didn't even get a chance to grab lunch." He looked so tired, so genuinely stressed, that for a split second, I actually believed him. I wanted to believe him. But the crumpled receipt was sitting right inside my pocket, burning against my thigh. That was the moment I realized my husband could look me dead in the eye and lie without a single hint of hesitation. But what I found on his laptop the next morning hurt even more. I couldn't sleep at all that night. I just lay there in the dark, listening to the steady rhythm of Mark's breathing, wondering who that second vanilla latte was for. By 5 a.m., the silence in our bedroom felt suffocating. I got out of bed, wrapped my robe around myself, and walked down the dark hallway to our home office. Mark's work laptop was sitting on the desk. He usually kept it locked, but he had been working late the night before and left it open, sleep mode keeping the screen dark. My hands were literally shaking as I touched the trackpad. The screen woke up instantly, revealing a half-finished spreadsheet. I'm not gonna lie, I felt sick to my stomach. I had never been the kind of woman who snooped. I used to pride myself on how much I trusted my husband. But the lie from the night before had completely shattered that foundation. I clicked on his personal email tab, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would wake the dog. There was nothing unusual in his inbox. Just receipts, spam, and standard newsletters. I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling a sudden wave of guilt. I was about to close the laptop and walk away when I noticed his messaging app icon flashing at the bottom of the screen. It was Slack, the platform his company used for internal communication. He was logged into his personal account link. I clicked it. Most of the channels were standard work stuff, project updates, IT support, memes shared between developers. But at the very top of his direct messages was a name I didn't recognize. Chloe. Her profile picture showed a young, attractive woman with bright eyes and a dimpled smile. She looked to be in her mid-20s, a recent hire in the marketing department. I scrolled up through their chat history, and my whole world quietly fell apart. The messages didn't start with anything scandalous. They started months ago. It was just professional banter at first, which slowly turned into inside jokes about their boss. Then came the late-night messages. They talked about their favorite movies, their childhoods, and how stressed they both were. I don't know how I'd get through these late-night rollouts without you, Mark had written to her 3 weeks ago. Same here, Chloe replied, adding a blushing emoji. You're the only one who truly gets how crazy this place is. There it was. The emotional intimacy I had been starving for, the conversations he used to have with me, he was giving them all to a stranger in a chat room. It felt like a physical blow. But it got worse. As I kept scrolling, I found the messages from last Saturday. That almond cake was amazing, Chloe wrote at 4:15 p.m., right around the time Mark told me he was starving in a conference room. Thanks for treating me, Mark. I really loved talking to you today. Anytime, Mark responded. It was the best part of my week. We need to do it again soon. Let's keep this between us, though. People at the office gossip too much. If you've ever experienced betrayal in a relationship, let me know in the comments. It's a feeling you never truly forget. I sat there in the dim light of the office, staring at the screen. Tears blurred my vision. It wasn't just a physical affair, at least, not yet. It was an emotional one. He was sharing his heart, his time, and his secrets with her while leaving me with the empty shell of a husband. I closed the laptop exactly how I found it. I went to the kitchen, made a pot of coffee, and waited for him to wake up. When he finally walked down the stairs, wearing his work clothes and looking completely oblivious, I felt a cold, hard anger replace the sadness. Good morning, he said, reaching for a mug. Mark, we need to talk, I said, keeping my voice steady. I found the receipt from Saturday. And I saw your messages with Chloe. He froze, the coffee pot hovering in midair. For a second, panic flashed across his face, but he quickly masked it with a defensive frown. Are you kidding me? You went through my things? He asked, his voice rising as he tried to turn the tables on me. Chloe is just a coworker, Lauren. We grabbed coffee to discuss a project. It's entirely platonic. You're blowing this completely out of proportion. He was gaslighting me, trying to make me feel like the crazy one for catching him in a lie. He stepped closer, reaching out to touch my shoulder, looking so genuinely remorseful that a tiny part of me wanted to believe him. That's when my phone buzzed on the counter with an incoming text from an unknown number. I picked up my phone, my fingers cold as I swiped the screen open. The text was from a local area code, but the number wasn't saved in my contacts. It was a screenshot of a private Instagram conversation. At the top of the chat was Mark's profile picture. The message he had sent, dated just past midnight the previous evening while I lay awake beside him, read, "I can't stop thinking about what you said at the bakery. I'm trying to find the right time to tell Lauren. Things have been over between us for a long time." Beneath the image, the unknown sender had typed a brief message. "You don't know me, but I'm Chloe's roommate. She's been bragging about your husband for weeks, and I thought you deserved to know the truth. He's lying to you." I stared at the screen, the words blurring together. The room felt completely silent, save for the ticking of the kitchen clock. The defensive anger that had been on Mark's face just a moment ago suddenly dissolved when he saw my expression change. "Lauren? What is it?" he asked, his voice dropping into a cautious, hesitant tone. I didn't say a word. I just turned the phone around and held it up so he could see the screen. As his eyes scanned the text, the color drained from his face. The confident, aggrieved husband who had just accused me of invading his privacy vanished. In his place stood a man caught completely exposed. He opened his mouth to speak, closed it, and took a step back, running a hand through his hair. "Look, Lauren, that was just talk," he stammered, his voice shaking now. "I was just saying what she wanted to hear. It doesn't mean anything, I swear to you. I was feeling lonely and stressed, and she was just there. It was a mistake. A stupid, cowardly mistake." He was right about one thing. It was cowardly. He had taken our 7 years of marriage, our shared dreams, our home, and traded them for the cheap thrill of feeling wanted by someone new. He hadn't wanted to do the hard work of communicating with me when things got dry. He chose the easy way out. I set the phone down on the counter with a soft click. I felt remarkably calm, a strange numbness washing over me. The crying was over. "I need you to pack a bag and leave, Mark," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, yet completely firm. "Lauren, please, don't do this," he pleaded, stepping toward me, his eyes welling with tears. "We can go to counseling. We can fix this. I love you. I don't want to lose you." I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized the man I had loved wouldn't have done this to me. He had already let go of us a long time ago. He spent the next 20 minutes packing his suitcase in absolute silence, the heavy thud of his footsteps echoing through our house. When the front door finally clicked shut behind him and his car pulled out of the driveway, the silence returned. I sat down on the living room floor, burying my face in my hands, and let the first real wave of grief wash over me. If you enjoy emotional real-life stories, don't forget to subscribe. A month passed. Mark stayed at an extended stay hotel near his office. He called me every day, sent long emails filled with apologies, and begged for a chance to earn my trust back. Part of me, the part that missed our old life, wanted to give in. But trust isn't a light switch you can just flip back on. Once it's broken, the pieces never quite fit the same way again. I spent that month focusing on myself. I went to therapy, reconnected with old friends I had drifted away from, and poured my energy into my design work. I started to realize how much of myself I had lost trying to keep a distant man happy. One Saturday morning, I decided it was time to pack up the rest of his things. I went into our guest closet where we kept old holiday decorations and luggage. Way in the back, behind a stack of winter coats, I found an old, locked metal lockbox that belonged to Mark. The key was attached to his spare keychain in the kitchen drawer. I told myself I was just opening it to make sure no important legal documents were left behind. But when the lock clicked open, what I found inside changed everything I thought I knew about our entire marriage. Inside the metal box, there were no hidden bank accounts or love letters from Chloe. Instead, there was a neat stack of bank statements, credit card bills, and a legal document from a local law firm downtown. I picked up the document first. My hands were steady this time, tempered by a month of forced emotional distance. It was a consultation agreement with a divorce attorney, dated 8 months ago. That was long before Chloe had even been hired at his firm. I flipped through the pages, my heart dropping as I read the notes attached. Mark had spent months quietly documenting our assets, calculating our home equity, and figuring out exactly how a legal separation would impact him financially. He hadn't just drifted away from our marriage. He had been actively planning his exit strategy while sitting across from me at the dinner table, eating the meals I made, and pretending everything was fine. Then I looked at the bank statements. There were massive, recurring cash withdrawals from our joint savings account over the past half year, totaling nearly $15,000. He hadn't been spending it on another woman. He had been hoarding cash, moving it into a private account I didn't have access to, ensuring he'd be financially secure whenever he decided to finally walk out the door. The emotional affair with Chloe wasn't the cause of our marriage breaking down. It was just the catalyst he used to finally pull the trigger. I sat on the floor of the guest closet, surrounded by old Christmas decorations, and a strange sense of clarity washed over me. The pain was still there, but the confusion was completely gone. I wasn't crazy. I hadn't been a bad wife. Mark was simply a man who was too cowardly to face his own unhappiness, choosing to quietly dismantle our life behind my back instead of having an honest conversation. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just took out my phone, snapped a photo of every single document in that box, and emailed them straight to my own divorce attorney. When Mark called me later that afternoon, his voice sounded tired, carrying that same rehearsed tone of regret he'd been using for weeks. "Lauren, I'm just checking in," he said softly. "I was hoping maybe we could grab dinner this week. Just to talk. I really want to show you that I'm doing the work to fix us." "Mark, I found the metal box in the guest closet," I said, cutting him off. My voice was entirely calm, completely devoid of the emotion he was probably expecting. The line went dead silent. I could hear his sharp intake of breath through the receiver. "I know about the attorney from 8 months ago," I continued. "And I know about the $15,000 you took from our savings. We aren't going to dinner, Mark. You're going to hear from my lawyer tomorrow morning, and you are going to put every single dollar back into that account." "Lauren, wait. Let me explain," he started, his voice suddenly frantic, the polished facade completely slipping away. I didn't let him finish. I hung up the phone and blocked his number. That night was the first time in months that I slept a full 8 hours. The illusion of my perfect marriage was gone, but the truth, no matter how ugly it was, felt like a solid place to finally stand. I was done waiting for him to choose me. I was ready to start choosing myself. But what I didn't expect was how far Mark would go to protect his secrets once the legal paperwork arrived at his office. 2 days later, the legal paperwork was officially served to Mark at his office. I knew the exact moment it happened because my phone started blowing up with notifications. He couldn't call me directly since I had blocked his number, so he turned to the only other outlet he had left, my family. My mom called me first, her voice frantic. "Lauren, sweetie, what is going on?" she asked, sounding completely out of breath. "Mark just called me crying his eyes out. He said you're divorcing him over a misunderstanding at work and that you're trying to ruin his life financially. He sounds absolutely devastated." He was trying to control the narrative. He knew that if my family thought he was just a stressed-out husband who made a minor mistake, they would pressure me to forgive him. He was playing the victim, weaponizing his tears to protect his reputation and paint me as the cold, unforgiving wife. I took a deep breath, keeping my composure. "Mom, I need you to listen to me very carefully," I said. "I love you, but you need to let me handle this. Mark didn't just have a misunderstanding. He's been planning a divorce behind my back for 8 months, and he stole $15,000 from our joint savings account. I have the bank statements to prove it." The line went completely quiet. My mom, who had always loved Mark like a son, let out a sharp sigh. "Oh my God, Lauren. I had no idea. I'm going to handle this legally, Mom. Please don't answer his calls anymore." After we hung up, I felt a heavy weight lift off my shoulders. The truth was my shield, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to use it. Mark's desperate attempt to manipulate my family backfired completely. Once my parents and siblings saw the copies of the bank statements and the attorney consultation documents, their support for him vanished into thin air. He was completely on his own. Seeing that his sympathy play didn't work, Mark finally stopped fighting. His lawyer contacted mine, offering a settlement. They knew that if we went to court, a judge would look very unfavorably on a spouse who surreptitiously drained joint assets while planning a separation. He agreed to return every single dollar he had taken from our savings. He also agreed to give me the house, as well as a fair share of his retirement accounts, just to avoid a lengthy, public legal battle that could jeopardize his standing at his company. He wanted this wrapped up quickly and quietly. The day we met at my attorney's office to sign the final dissolution papers was the first time I had seen Mark in person in nearly 3 months. He looked tired. The sharp, confident posture he used to carry was gone, replaced by a slight slump in his shoulders. He looked like a man who had realized too late the staggering cost of his own choices. He signed the papers, pushed them across the table, and then looked up at me. "I'm sorry, Lauren," he said, his voice barely a murmur. "I really am. I ruined the best thing I ever had because I was too afraid to just tell you I was struggling." I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger or bitterness or grief. I just felt a profound sense of detachment. "I know," I said softly. "I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Mark." I turned and walked out of the conference room, leaving the broken pieces of our past behind me. Looking back now, I realized that the ending of my marriage wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of a much better chapter. Healing didn't happen overnight, but every day I spent rebuilding my life on my own terms brought me a little closer to peace. I redecorated the house, turning his old office into a bright, inspiring design studio for my freelance work. I traveled, I laughed, and I reconnected with the independent woman I used to be before I lost myself trying to save a man who didn't want to be saved. Trust actions more than promises. A man can tell you he loves you every single day, but if his choices, his boundaries, and his honesty don't align with his words, the words mean absolutely nothing. Healing begins the exact moment you choose yourself, and self-respect is always more important than keeping a broken relationship alive. I lost a husband, but in the end, I finally found myself. And honestly, that is the most satisfying happy ending I could have ever asked for. If you've ever gone through something like this, or if you know someone who has, please share your thoughts in the comments below. To support these real-life stories, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more emotional journeys. Thank you for watching.